Welcome to the new episode of Startup Strides. Another day, another episode. This time, my guest is Issie James. She's a co-founder of Onstage. Her and her team are building the YC of Europe. And I'm going to jump right in. I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm curious about your background. I mean, maybe you can mention a few things about leading up to Onstage, but also I guess you can tie it to what you saw in the market, perhaps what you didn't see in the market, the gap in the market that made you and your team realize, okay, there was something like Onstages was needed and necessary.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for having me as the rep of Onstage on. Firstly, we started about 5 years ago, and essentially began as a small office hours for founders to connect with a small network of VCs. We had about 6 VC partners at the time, and the reason that we did that was essentially. Um, the realization that the VC funding landscape wasn't very democratized, at least in London, like definitely not across the whole of Europe. And there was scope for essentially a layer to sit on top of these networks that connected founders from any background to VCs that was purely based on merit. So that's how we started. And then over the last 5 years, it's grown some serious legs. It's turned into pretty much a full-time gig. Um, and we are a demo day that runs twice a year. So we partner now with about 350 VC funds across Europe. We have 3,000 early stage startups applying for our demo days each year. And we've had companies like Lawhive, Anteria, and Relay come through our demo days so far.
Mhm. So one thing you mentioned, you said the VC landscape is not very democratized. Do you think? Can you elaborate on that? And also, would you say it's the VC landscape across Europe is fragmented?
Definitely. By design, the VC landscape, if you're comparing it to something like America, is just fragmented in so many small ways. I would say I would call them kind of collection of micro inefficiencies. You've got things like language, clusters of networks, and then proximity is obviously the most obvious one. Regulation, and there's no layer basically that sits across all of these countries and aims to connect networks of founders and VCs. So that's what we're pretty much aiming to do is provide this pivotal point across the year where we can converge all of these clusters of networks across Europe and bring them in one place.
Fair enough. And I think I saw somewhere. I mean, you also mentioned you guys get like thousands of startups applying to on stage, and you only choose a fraction, right? Can you kind of walk me through the selection journey? What happens when from the moment startup applies to the on stage, and what happens next?
Yeah, so it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is being a very inefficient, very inefficient process, not inefficient. Cut that one out. A very efficient process. So we take about 10 minutes for a founder to apply to us. And then the idea is that through that 10-minute application, they can essentially temperature gauge how their company in its current state will be perceived by VCs. So, as I said, 10-minute application form. We then send all of those applicants to our VC partners. You've got VCs like Creandum, Balderton, Atomico reviewing these profiles of startups. And then we ask those VCs to select companies that they would be interested in speaking to from a genuine investment perspective. And we have access to all of that data on our back end. So instead of us judging companies ourselves, we're essentially crowdsourcing VC perspective and using that data. So we select the top 1% of startups based off VC intros, and they're the companies that pitch at Demo Day.
Interesting. So I get when you are prioritizing which that fraction of the startups that go through the final stage are also decided by this collective decision making of VCs, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think there's a lot of pitch competitions and demos out there, and your more classic scoring system, for example, it does work, but you're not getting that duality in value in terms of any applicant that applies can get an introduction from a VC. The value isn't just for people that actually get through to the final stage. I think I think it's the majority of startups that apply do get at least one introduction from a VC. So there's so much value there for a significant portion of founders.
So quite a mutually beneficial dynamic, essentially, involved. Once you select those group of startups as they progress to the final stage, as there's a demo day, as that's when the VCs judge and perhaps some of them get investment rounds, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we are like we're essentially a relationship building and distribution tool for these companies. So we purposely don't actively track the investments that are made from the companies that come through demo day and VCs after that. Our focus essentially is on giving a founder that appears on demo day the widest distribution and most positive brand association possible by being at demo day. um, we have estimated that founders that have come through Demo Day have gone on to raise just over 500 million. So the numbers do actually stack up as well. But our main metric is how many impressions can we get for founders that pitch at Demo Day, and then how many introductions are we making for those founders to VCs.
Wow, that's really cool. You get this judgment and kind of perspective from many different VCs. I'm curious, how do you manage to like make sure so many kind of work with so many VCs? Because they might have different kind of ideas, what they expect, the sectors, the competing theses. How do you manage to align all those competing perspectives?
From all the VCs.
Yes.
So I think it works because we've always marketed ourselves as an agnostic platform, and we don't charge VCs for anything. We're a collaborator more than a product. We are almost this like base level or like default platform that VCs should be interacting with throughout the year to get a base level of deal flow at least. It's almost like if you're not interacting with Demo Day, then you're missing out on 3,000 companies a year that essentially kind of land on your lap. So why wouldn't you do it? Which works for us in a lot of ways because it means that the expectations in terms of how we actually run things are lowered. I think maybe for the VCs that work with us, we might still come across as relatively grassroots. Like we run everything through Airtable. We send people an Airtable link and do everything on an Airtable form. So, we're still scrappy in a lot of ways, and we want to be perceived as this like collaborative partner to a VC.
I mean, I think it makes sense. You guys are scrappy. You're working with startups. You're a startup yourself in a way. It does make sense. Besides obviously the typical metrics are great team, great, big market. Also, the kind of standard narratives, which determine a good startup in many ways. But you are exposed to, you're consistently talking with both sides and you get so much data, I'm assuming. What do you think what kind of other non-obvious signals predict founders that attract strong investor interest?
So aside from the kind of good team, big market thing, so we are hyper aware of a founder's ability to describe their company in succinct terms. It it spreads across some of the most important functions and hurdles that a founder will come across in their startup journey. You need to be able to sell the vision of your company to founders, to your internal team, to investors, to your customers. And if you can't do that, then you're really gonna struggle. So we see that a lot, and I think the reason that we're so aware of it is because part of our application process, one of the main questions is describe your company in one line. Um,
Mm.
we actually found interestingly that companies that make it through to pitch at demo day do have significantly shorter answers for that question. than the ones that don't. And I think it really is reflective of this ability to succinctly describe your vision in a way that is understandable to a third party.
Does it usually come from them understanding their solution so well or their problem so well?
Definitely the problem. Definitely the problem. I think that's like the kind of tale as old as time. So if you can't almost make the reader feel the pain that you are trying to solve, or at least understand the pain that you are trying to solve, then it's going to be hard, especially if someone's looking at your application amongst a bunch of others, for instance. It's going to be hard for your application to stand out. Uh, Memory is connected to emotion, and I think so if you can convey that, then
Yeah,
you're fine.
I think one of the most important things they say, like in sales too, is that people don't buy products; they buy emotions. You know, how you make them feel about really anything. Um, Startup founders getting younger and younger. I'm curious. Is there what's the typical demographic of on stage founders?
Really varies. I think with the way that our model works, we are a lot more open and accessible, I would say, to a variety of founders, and not just this kind of young profile that venture is really hot on at the moment. Um, we do take in a lot of young founders. We also take founders that are maybe at the 1 to 2 phase instead of the 0 to 1 phase. Maybe it's the second time that they founded a company, so they don't feel like they need to go through an accelerator process anymore, and they just kind of want to get going. So yeah, I think by design we are a bit more of a broad spectrum in terms of the founders that we get to attract.
Fair enough. At what point does a startup become demo day ready? And when is it too early?
Yeah, I always don't think too early as possible, and the reason I say that is because last demo day we hosted a hackathon a couple of weeks before, and the winner of the hackathon pitched at demo day. So this was a 2-week-old company, and the people who actually made it through and won the hackathon and made it onto pitch at demo day, they met on the night of the hackathon.
What?
So yeah, it was a really cool company. It's called Audio Games. They essentially made audio based games that you could chat with. For example, if you're a family in the car, and yeah, and we had them on after 2 weeks, and we were introducing them to really good VCs. So like, I genuinely don't believe that too early is a thing, especially because again the way that we work is so agnostic.
Do you expect a certain kind of, I guess, demo or some sort of prototype to be available, to be ready during that?
No, the
No.
audio games one was good. I think that was like a an example of a product that was very transferable, and you could just do it. Literally, they did a live demo of the product at demo day. I think that was actually the first time we've seen it that
Oh,
happen
wow.
live. Often you can't really do that. We give people 2 minutes to pitch, so it's actually not very long at all. And essentially, that time is for most people best spent standing out, showing your traction if you're kind of seed onwards, or if you're pre-seed, showing like why you are the best person placed to solve this problem right now.
Do you see deep tech founders and biotech deep tech, or is it more still very much AI focused startups?
Still very much AI focused, but again, I don't know if that's because of the structure of what we're doing, and the VC networks that we're tapping into. VC is super interested in AI now in general. We're using their channels to reach founders. Could be that, or just AI is going crazy at the moment.
Yeah, I guess combination of things, right? Um, on your LinkedIn, and you mentioned it right now, but on your LinkedIn, one of the things that stands out to me is building the YC of Europe, right? Which is, but this is out the residency. So I'm curious, and I'm really interested. What are the advantages of the platform model compared to traditional accelerator?
Yeah, but I think like does anyone even apply to YC anymore for the program? Is the
No,
question.
it's the marketing, it's the brand name.
Exactly. Which, like, if it's the marketing, it's the branding, it's there's
Stamp of approval, you know.
stamp of approval, the idea that you could go on Bookface and connect with Brian Chesky with your problem that you've had in one of your Airbnbs that you stayed in. I think that is the I think that's kind of some of the main points that I've heard about YC. It's still YC is still a phenomenal platform and program, but we also understand that what founders are prioritizing at the moment is distribution, it's connection, and it's funding. And you don't need a program to facilitate that. Especially now, if you think about when YC first started, we were living in a lot slower of a world. Like if you think about social media now, TikTok, everything is significantly faster. People's attention spans are so much shorter. Like the kind of long time span program does feel more like something that belongs in the pre-TikTok short attention span era.
True. I mean, AI has changed the dynamic of building a company in many ways, both from technical standpoint, but also, as you said, in the combination of social media, the distribution and the access, the exposure is just completely different. And a lot of people, I feel like even the things like storytelling, I feel like it's so accessible now. Like everybody knows to a degree how to tell a story about their startup, which in a way makes it a bit difficult to know which startup is actually good or which startup is not good because everybody polishes their pitch so well. Um, Speaking of pitch, do you think people like investors make up their minds in 30 to 60 seconds of a pitch? And what makes the company stand out and be memorable during the stage on stage?
Yeah. Anecdotally, the things I have heard about the first 30 seconds of someone walking in a room is that person had so much charisma. I think there does exist this entity of person who really commands the room as soon as they walk into it. And that is a genuine point of consideration that an investor will make when they invest in a company. But this person had an amazing presence when I spoke to them. They're amazingly charismatic. Um, Aside from that, I think the rest of it is more of a deselection process. I think, there's a lot can happen in 60 seconds that would make someone think, no, this probably isn't right for us. But yeah, I mean, after that, there's still a lot of time, I think, to make an impression on people. And as long as you've got, the points that I was saying, if you're pre-seed, if you're getting your points across as to why you're the best person for this problem, and then if you're seed onwards, like what your kind of traction is and how much you've built in X amount of time, I think you're doing all right.
I would like to ask what makes a person charismatic, but I feel like that's going to make a psychology episode podcast.
I love psychology. Sorry.
I, I do life cycle. I actually went in college. I was a biochemistry major, but I did take neuroscience and psychology classes. I think it's a fascinating subject, but I feel like it's going to open up Pandora's box and it's going to become like a 2 hour long episode
Yeah, we'll have to chat about that another time.
at another time. From another thing, I guess on the flip side, some of the mistakes you see on stage, especially even maybe it might be promising founder is a good idea, but some of the common mistakes when presenting or positioning their startups on stage.
I think I think people have to feel excited when they listen to your pitch. If you can't get excited or make the people that you're speaking to feel excited about what you're doing, then it's forgettable. It goes back to that point where it's, memory is linked to a lot of emotion. And at least I've seen this in demo days, and maybe this is a concentrated case because it's pitches back to back. But if you don't make people feel a certain way, then you are just going to get lost in the crowd.
If you are nervous, does it mean you're not going to do well? I mean, I'm sure you've seen quite a few.
No, and I have seen some of the best pitches where someone has said at the start, "I feel really nervous," and they've just absolutely knocked it out of the park. Uh,
Uh,
so no, I think the two can exist at once. I think there's almost a sense of humility in maybe admitting that up front, as long as you deliver a good enough pitch afterwards. But no, I don't think I don't think a nervous pitcher is a bad one.
Fair enough. I guess honestly, going back to the psychology point, acknowledging your fear is one of the ways, weirdly enough, to combat that fear very effectively. And that's really cool. Do you think traditional demo days are evolving too, especially in the age of AI and the online distribution? And this, where do you see, especially in the future of this venture discovery on stage fitting?
Yeah, I definite. I think venture now is just as much about funding as it is about distribution, and everyone needs to evolve towards that. We're doing that ourselves. We our messaging used to be very clearly for demo day. If you're a founder that's raising the next 6 months, then apply to us. We are moving away from that now, and we want to be open to any founder at any time, whether they're raising right now or in the next 12 months or 18 months. Um, we essentially want to be the distribution platform for venture just as much as the platform that connects founders with VCs for their fundraisers they're going through.
Fair enough. Oh, Izzy, on a more personal note, what made you, pursue something like a platform idea instead of going purely into VC yourself?
So I stumbled into VC by accident.
Mm,
So I was a founder's associate at a prop tech company, and I had a friend approach me. Actually, Aria, who was he works at Jack and Jill. He's the first employee at Jack and Jill.
I actually had Sophia from Jack and Jill not
Oh,
long
amazing!
ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
I saw that. So my friend Aria approached me and said that he was setting up a community for future founders. So anyone who was wanting to found a business basically in the next 2 years asked if I wanted to help him and a couple of others set that up. Um, I was still in full time in the founders associate role at that point as well, but this was my first exposure into an ecosystem role rather than a more pigeonholed operator role within a specific startup. And I loved it. I just loved speaking to people that have a genuine passion and a solid plan and the confidence to go into a room full of people and tell people about their idea that's in their brain that hasn't had any validation yet. I think that was such an exciting environment to be in. And we essentially built that from zero to about 300 members in the time that I was there. We had some really cool speakers. Our first event was with Paddle's offices, with like Eileen Burbridge and the founder of Otter at the time, Chris Totman. So that was my first insight into that space. And I knew I wanted to do more of that. And so when I saw what the guys at was Focal back then, but Onstage now are doing, I was really keen to get involved. And so yeah, my role started essentially as a community ops, pretty much everything person, and essentially is built to co-founder today.
that's so cool. Um, Entrepreneurs First, they, I believe, not long ago launched a bridge program, and they kind of expanded into US and SF specifically. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you're also focused on UK and Europe, right? Do you have plans to expand into US too, or do you think you're bullish on Europe?
So we've actually retracted. So oh yeah, we're bullish on Europe. So we up until about a year ago were a global platform. So we were building VC networks in the US as well. We had a decent portion, it's about 30% of our applicants come from outside of Europe. So at the end of last year, we decided to take the risk to go all in on Europe. It felt right, almost the kind of antithesis of EF moving over to America. These types of things open up opportunities where people leave them, and so we were really keen to take advantage of the traction that Europe was gaining. platforms like Scaling Europe, the guys at ETN, things like this. It's such an exciting time to be building something that is purely in Europe, and also there's so much value in being focused. It means that we can like very clearly define our brand. Like we are a European platform serving European VCs and founders, and yeah, it's been a good decision so far.
Is it putting aside all the ecosystem and the VC talk on purely on the technological side? What kind of technologies and startups really excite you?
I'm pretty obsessed with the idea that like kind of every new company from now will be operating with a significantly smaller headcount, but have significantly higher productivity because of the internal AI tools that everyone's using. Um, just the premise, like if you think about previously how building automated workflows or technical workflows was very restricted to technical members of the team, pretty much open to everyone now. And I've seen it firsthand in some of these AI companies, and the way that everyone is using AI is pretty insane. And yeah, just the accessibility of it. I suppose it links to Onstage's kind of democratization type thesis, which is this tech is open to everyone. So yeah, I'm pretty obsessed with that. Things like, I mean, granola is life changing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, true, true. Um, I'm going to ask my final two questions, and one of them is, how do you see in the next 5 to 10 years? What role do you see or want on stage to play in shaping the next generation of European founders?
So we want Onstage to become this default step in every European startup's growth strategy. So, in the same way that a startup will launch their new product on Product Hunt, we want to be the exact same thing when founders think about distribution or fundraising. And essentially plugging into the Onstage network should feel like the kind of most obvious high leverage move for them.
Fair enough. And my final question, any upcoming dates we have to keep in mind?
Yeah. So we are opening up applications for our next demo day on the 13th of April. It's open to any pre-seed to Series A startup. I was going to say who's raising the next 6 months, but it's not. It's open to anyone now. And then on stage demo day itself is on the 21st of May. We'll be live streaming it so anyone can tune in, but all of our VC partners will also be invited to watch in person.
And it will be in London.
We'll be in London, Soho.
Izzy, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. And I'm looking forward to sharing more good news from you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, David.